Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast called The Outpost. And it's a special one because we're going to be talking about the Nocturne cards, all of the previewed ones. And today here I have Beyond Awesome with me, and I also have Tracer.
Hello, I'm Beyond Awesome, and I'm not very good playing with Nocturne cards.
I'm Tracer. I watch a lot of Dominion, and yeah, I'm here to talk to you all. So supposedly you're supposed to care.
Yeah, they will. So, we'll pretty much just get right to the chase. I assume a lot of our viewers have already seen the cards, but if you haven't, they are on the forums. I'm sure they're on Reddit. I'm sure they're on Board Game Geek. I'm sure they're everywhere.
They're on the Dominion
honestly.
strategy site.
Yeah, they're on the Dominion strategy. Yes, of course. The one place I should be mentioning. All right. So we have a bunch of these cards here, and we're going to go through each one of them, and it's going to be a really long podcast. And we're going to talk about how good we think the cards are, maybe some situations. I don't think we're really going to go through the boons and hexes. We're not going to go through like what all of them do. We'll probably talk about the hexes more because they're more interesting. The boons are pretty boring. You know, they're very stock. It's like base Dominion bonuses mostly. But the hexes are a little more interesting, so we might talk about that a little bit. But anyway, we're going to start here with the Devil's Workshop. And it costs 4. It's a night card. And Tracer, would you like to explain night cards and how you play them?
Oh, okay. Night cards, they happen after your buy phase. They don't cost an action, so you can draw them up and play them afterwards, and they do the thing that they say they do. I think the only one we've seen that isn't just like that is Werewolf, and we'll talk about that one later.
Yeah. So for the most part, while your turn's going on, night cards are dead in your hand. They don't do anything except for Werewolf. And, well, once your buy phase is over, you can play all the night cards you want. And that's basically a summary. So we're going to start here with the Devil's Workshop. And the Devil's Workshop is a night card. And it's basically a workshop variant. If the number of cards you've gained this turn is 2 or more, gain an imp from its pile. If you've gained 1 card, gain a card costing up to 4. And if you've gained no cards at all, you gain a gold. And before we talk about imp, let's talk about the other aspects of Devil's Workshop. Beyond Awesome, how useful is the gold gain and the costing up to 4 for this particular workshop variant?
The gold gain is very situational. Sometimes you might gain a gold, maybe 2 in a game. The costing up to 4 is reasonable, but that's really not what you want most of the time.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, it's not necessarily true. It depends on the board. There are a lot of good 4s in Dominion, and having a non-terminal workshop is really nice. You can get Ironmongers with it. All sorts of good cards. Tracer, what are your thoughts on the all the things that have nothing to do with imp for Devil's Workshop?
Well, the workshop variant is more closer to something like Ironworks just because you can play it non-terminally, so that ends up being pretty useful starting out your deck. And the gold gain, I haven't played with it a whole lot, but there was one game I played against Lawlight, which was an ambassador game where you're not gaining much, but the gold gain was a great way to build economy. And unlike something like Quest, it's something that you put in your deck and you don't need to actually be colliding ambassadors for it to be worth it. So that ended up being pretty nice to kick off the building.
Yeah, I think I saw that one actually. That sounds familiar. One downside to this particular workshop variant is you can't really do any mid-turn gaining, so you can't gain an Ironworks, draw it, gain an Ironworks, draw it, and like 3 pile for the win. You can't do that with Devil's Workshop. That doesn't come up too often, anyways, so it's not a big hindrance. But I would say Devil's Workshop more than makes up for it in the thing that we're going to talk about now, the Imp. Now, the Imp is a spirit card. It costs 2. You can't buy it, though. It's not in the supply. It's like Mercenary or any of the Travelers past the first one. It gives you +2 cards, and you may play an action card from your hand that you don't have a copy of in play. So it's kind of I almost want to say a lab variant, because if you play Imp and then you play a cantrip, it's like playing a lab. So it's a really, really good cycler, and it's pretty easy to get with Devil's Workshop. And from my experiences with Imp, it's a pretty explosive card. Beyond Awesome and Tracer, do you think so? We'll start with Beyond Awesome.
Yeah, Imp is pretty amazing most of the time. I mean, there are boards where you can't get enough or there aren't enough cards to use it with, but usually you're just able to just draw your entire deck with Imp.
Yeah.
Tracer, your
I
thoughts?
mean, you said it's like a lab variant. Yeah, it is a lab variant. You get 2 cards, and most often get to play an action with them because you want to have that deck diversity anyways that helps you out playing something. You can keep from playing your terminals for a while, and it can do that for you while drawing. So you can also view it as like a +2 cards and say a Merchant Guild effect on top of that. I've gotten a little bit mad at Devil's Workshop a few times for gaining imps, but
yeah, Devil's Workshop's a really powerful card just for the imp gain. Like, if it had nothing else but the imp gain, and like if you gain 2+ cards, it just gained you imps. Like, how much less often would you pick it up? I imagine it wouldn't be. It would play a little bit differently, like in the opening.
Well,
but I would imagine you'd still just pick it up.
Yeah, you'd pick it up later. I mean, imp's good enough that if you can gain a lot of them, you do. So I think it was.
Yeah. Another thing I've noticed is you can over terminal with these imps all the time. Like, you could pick up way more than your deck can handle, and usually you still are completely fine.
They aren't terminal, so.
Yeah, most of the time they're not. They can be terminal, but if you're careful, you're fine. So yeah, that's Imp and Devil's Workshop. Your final thoughts on it, Beyond Awesome?
Like I said, Imp is amazing. It's really good. Devil's Workshop is a pretty good gainer. I mean, the main reason is you really want the imps, but it's like an Ironworks when it's not getting imps, so it's still pretty good. So yeah.
Yeah, Tracer?
Not much more to say than we have. Imp's good. It's like a lab. It's cheap, easy to gain. So you gain them because they're good.
Yeah. Yeah. There are other spirits. There's Ghost and there's Will-o-wisp. We'll talk about those later. So next up in the previews for the first day, we have Raider, Tracer's favorite card. And I say this sarcastically. Raider is a 6-cost card, and it is a night duration attack. And a lot of these night cards seem to be durations. Not all of them, but about half, I would say, that I've seen so far in these previews. So the thing is, each other player with 5 or more cards in hand discards a copy of a card you have in play or reveals they can't. At the start of your next turn, $3 or +3 coin. Tracer, what do you think about Raider?
Well, first thing to say is that the attack will shut down your money strategies, but it's not going to do much else. And because of that, it's really not very good. You can discard a copy that you have in play, but that's going to, in a good deck, that's going to do roughly the same as any other discard attack would, and it only discards 1 and it costs 6, so you're just not going to end up picking it up that often.
All right, Beyond Awesome, your thoughts?
Well, since Adventures, attacks have been getting weaker, so this isn't anything new. It feels like a non-terminal cut purse a lot of times. Sometimes it'll hit a decent card. It's like Swamp Egg that you get the +3 coins. It's non-terminal, but rarely are you going to play. I mean, there are decks where you will fit in a Raider, but usually there's better cards to buy most of the time.
Okay. It's funny because the very first game I played with Raider, it was a really sloggy game, and we ended up getting a ton of Raiders, and they ended up being kind of like gold, but it attacked. It was just like a slight delayed gold. And I think that's how you have to think of Raider. It's just kind of like a gold that you delay it a little bit, but it attacks and it might hurt. And in games where you really want gold, you probably really want Raider. But I mean, this is just hypothesis. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Raider's pretty underwhelming. I don't want to say it's Adventurer bad, but it's probably Gold bad.
Yeah, as I said, in an engine, you can pretty well shut down money by making them discard silver or gold, but otherwise, it's not going to be that good. But that also means in money games, it's just going to slow the whole thing down, which leads to, as you said, sloggy.
Yep. I mean, if you're playing money, like most of the time in Dominion, you're doing it wrong. So, I mean, there's some money games, but so overall, I think we all agree that Raider is pretty. It's probably one of the worst cards, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Next up, we have Ghost Town. It costs 3. It's a night card into duration. And it's a village variant, or splitter, or taco, or whatever words you prefer. At the start of your next turn, +1 card and +1 action. And when you gain it, this is gained to your hand instead of your discard pile. So, who went first last time? Was it Tracer?
I think so.
Yeah. So Beyond Awesome, what do you think of Ghost Town?
I think it's really good. I buy it a lot. I mean, when you play it, it's half a caravan, but what's really good is that you do start your turn with a bigger hand, but you also have that extra action, so you don't have to worry about your terminals colliding as much. And the fact that you gain it to your hand when you buy it is really good. So I've been buying it a lot. I don't have much more to say, just that I like the card a lot, and I think it's a pretty decent village.
All right, Tracer?
Yeah, it's close to as good as we get for a consistency card in Dominion, because you get your actions at the start of the next turn. You don't need to have a village in hand. You get your card at the start of the next turn. It'll maybe get you that draw card that'll make you go off, and just
okay. You don't sound very excited about Ghost Town.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get too excited about any of the Dominion cards. I don't know.
All right.
All about putting them together.
Yeah. Well, Ghost Town, I don't know what to think about Ghost Town, because the turn you get it, it's great, and then after that, it's just a curse in your deck for the rest of the game. Yeah, you get to play it, but until you do, it's a dead card in your hand, and I've kind of found that it slows your deck down a little bit after you get it. So I'm starting to theorize here, and I've been starting to pick up Ghost Towns less than I have. Games at a time, I would pick up Ghost Towns all the time. I would just buy Ghost Town, Ghost Town, Ghost Town, and it does less and less for your deck the more Ghost Towns there are. So, the more Ghost Towns you have in your deck, the more draw you need to compensate for the Ghost Towns being in your deck, because they're glorified duchies or glorified estates until the end of your turn. You get that little extra draw, that little extra consistency, which is great. But sometimes you draw a Ghost Town and it doesn't matter. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And I think it's a very high skill card, and you have to use it with finesse.
Yeah, it's like what we say with Fishing Village now is if there's other villages, you're probably only going to want 2 of them or 4 of them just to emphasize the consistency. And it's the same thing with Ghost Town. You can't pick up a lot of them because they don't draw a lot. I mean, when you draw them during your turn, they don't do anything. So it's all about the next turn effect.
Yeah, I think Ghost Town is the perfect night card in like to introduce to people because it has all the elements of night. It's bad initially in your hand, and then it's good after, and it kind of teaches you like you got to be careful with night cards, and you can't just buy them all the time. Some you can, Werewolf, but most you can't, and you have to be a little bit careful with over terminaling. But I mean, it's like a different kind of terminal with night cards. You can play all the night cards you want, but they're also dead cards during your actual turn. So it's kind of a different kind of terminaling, which is interesting to think about. So overall, what were your impressions beyond awesome?
I like I said, I like Ghost Town. I do agree it is definitely a high skill card, and you can't buy too many of them. But the on buy effect is pretty strong, and there are times where it's just worth it to get that extra card in that next turn. So yeah, you don't have like all the Ghost Towns, but it's a nice village. I like it.
Yeah, gaining to your hand is really, really strong. If you know you're going to have collision in your next hand, you just pick up a Ghost Town and you're good. Tracer, what is your overall like power impression for Ghost Town?
Yeah, I mean, it's as I say, it's one of the best consistency cards we have. I'm not as hot on gain of it. Just it's a nice extra bonus, but if you don't want the Ghost Town, otherwise you shouldn't be buying it for that. But it's as I say, it's the best consistency card. Maybe not best, but it's one of the best that we have.
All right, fair enough. Next up, we're on to the bonus preview for the first day. We have Crypt. It's a night duration card also, and it's one of the weirdest Dominion cards I've ever seen. I can't think of much weirder cards, and all of them happen to be in Nocturne, probably because I'm not used to them. But it costs 5. Set aside any number of treasures you have in play, face down under this. And you have to remember it's a night card, so after you're done with your buy phase, you're going to have all your treasures, like all your silvers and coppers and golds and whatever. So Crypt is going to set aside all of those. And while any remain set aside, at the start of each of your turns, put one of them into your hand. So it's a little confusing, but once you get it, you get it. Tracer, what do you think of Crypt?
Well, I'm going to say there's a lot of varying opinions on Crypt, first of all. I'm of the opinion that it's really not very good. You'd much rather get rid of your treasures some other way, and if they're treasures that you wouldn't want to get rid of, you'd rather be playing them every turn rather than having them set aside. When you do something like a strong draw board, like, say, Governor, it's going to be really good to pick one of these up just to get all the copper out right away. But other than getting rid of the copper, I don't know that there's much use for it. It plays a lot the same as Mint, where you need to be able to draw it before you can actually do anything with it. So
yeah, absolutely. A nice thing about Crypt is you cannot draw it dead. So you could pick up, say, like a smithy silver, and then pick up a mint later, and
Crypt later.
Yeah, and you could just draw it, and that's like the ideal situation. You draw it with all your treasures, and then you just play it and tuck them all away. But it does slowly bleed back into your deck. And I've seen people like Dan Brooks say, "Oh, I love picking up like 4 Crypts," and that I know he's like the best player in Dominion, but that seems so awful to me.
It's expensive. It's expensive.
It's like it seems really stupid to do, but maybe it's good. I don't know. I haven't tried it, mainly because it just seems so bad. But I'm not saying Crypt is bad. I'm just saying buying 4 of them is bad. All right, so Beyond Awesome, what do you think about Crypt?
Well, okay, so I do agree that if you can trash your cards. That's always better. But if you don't have any trashing on the board, Crypt is really good. You can't ignore it if there isn't any trashing on the board. There's also probably ways to set up your deck with Crypt, and you probably do need 4 of them to do that. So I think Dan Brooks might be onto something. But it's very hard to say. I mean, it's a fairly new card. It's sort of like Archive in a way, but except they can have more cards set aside. But it does get rid of a lot of treasures right away, which you don't want treasures in an engine. So that's pretty nice. That just gets rid of them. And they do slowly bleed black in your deck. So you want at least 2 of them. But I think it's a pretty good card. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's the strongest card ever, but I think it's pretty, pretty up there. Not crazy up there, but it's reasonably strong.
Okay. I don't know how to feel about Crypt. I don't know. It feels like Archive to me, in which I have to play a lot more games with it before I get the groove of it, because it's so unlike anything else. Archive was so unlike anything else. So I'm gonna have to pass on saying how good this is. I don't know.
Win.
And I think anyone who says they do know, they might be kidding themselves. I think you're gonna have to play with this for about a month before you get it. But I mean, Dan Brooks, man, he wants to pick up 4 of them at once. I mean, go ahead. I just hope I'm playing against him in the tournament when he's doing that. That's all I'm gonna say. We're on to the next ones here. We have Shepherd. There's a lot of varying opinions on Shepherd, so this is going to be an interesting one. So Shepherd is a 4-cost, and with this we're going to kickstart into heirlooms. And heirlooms replace your coppers. One of your coppers. And I believe there are 7 heirlooms in total. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing about heirlooms is there's an heirloom or heirloom. I'm not sure which one it is.
Heirloom.
It's
Heirloom.
Heirloom. All right. Cool. Like an heir. Okay. Each heirloom connects with an action card. So Shepherd connects with this heirloom called Pasture, and there'll be other ones. Not all of them are shown. So anyway, we'll just talk about it when it happens. So with Shepherd, we have +1 action. It costs 4. Discard any number of victory cards, revealing them, and +2 cards per card discarded. And its heirloom is Pasture. And Pasture kind of gives 1 coin. It's just like copper. It costs 2, though, instead of 0. And it's a victory card. And it's worth 1 victory point per estate you have. So if you get an estate, you're basically adding +2 VP to your deck per estate you buy. And Shepherd kind of sifts through all the green. So there are a lot of varying opinions on Shepherd. I think I'm starting to figure the card out, but before we get to that, I'm going to ask Tracer.
Okay.
What do you think of Shepherd?
No, I don't think the opinions on it are that varying. It's really just, do you think it's good, or do you think it's good with other draw only? And it's going to be really hard to make it do its own draw for an entire deck, just because you're going to have consistency problems with actually drawing Shepherds with that much green in the deck to make it draw itself. But get it with other draw and it'll get right past your green cards and do everything you want Crossroads to do, but better.
All right. Beyond Awesome, what do you think of Shepherd?
I think that if there's good trashing, you should go with the trashing instead of worrying about Shepherd. The exception being Ambassador, because probably I'm pretty sure you had a game where you played Ambassador and Shepherd crushed you. So
yes, but I may have played it wrong. It was just one game, so it's not enough to base things on.
True.
I think I'd still go Ambassador again, and it could be the engine was just really weak there. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, Shepherd is good when there isn't good trashing, and it's a good support card. essentially turns your victory cards into kind of lab sort of things. So there have been a few times where I have been able to draw my deck because of Shepherd. So it's definitely reasonable, but you need other cards in the deck to kind of pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to build a draw engine, you want to have it have some sort of payload. So I guess Shepherd on its own might not be like Sana Vanto type strong, but it'll get you some. It'll get you part of the way there.
Are you saying that Shepherd and Harem are just a married couple already? Is that what you're saying, Tracer?
Well, if you're going to build a Shepherd deck where you trash a bunch of your copper, then yeah.
All right. Harem's OP. You've heard it here first. So, oh man, Shepherd. I don't know. I think I'm leaning more towards what Tracer said. For a little bit there was like this Shepherd's overpowered thing. I was kind of part of that hype train.
Yeah, I said buy all the estates and draw up your deck.
Yeah, buy all the estates in Shepherd. It's ridiculous. And now it's more of a Shepherd just looks really good because the rest of Nocturne is kind of weak, or at least it was with the early previews. Yeah, a lot of the cards were weaker.
It looks,
and they tended to be more sloggy, and so Shepherd kind of shined in all of those games. And now that like more previews have happened, Shepherd's gotten a little weaker. So I think it was more a consequence of the cards you were playing with, because you were forced to play with these certain cards. And I think that's going to continue to change when Nocturne drops. Our opinions on these cards will change again. I think they're closer to correct, but yeah, I think Shepherd is a very good sifter. You could probably even open Shepherd and be okay.
Yeah,
but
I've opened Shepherd plenty of times. There's a game against Lime Time with Governor and Steward. I opened Shepherd Steward, and that was off to the races and just good. Cycle through everything. I mean, it looks good because it is good. You get to play your engine, but you get to start greening a little bit earlier because you can actually get through it without having to build up the draw to account for it, because Shepherd will just do that for you. Put more green in, you draw more.
Absolutely. I would say the one piece of advice, if your opponent has pasture and shepherds, don't send them estates with ambassador. Just send them a bunch of copper, because the shepherds will choke on that. Don't send them estates, because that's just giving them points and draw. And in that one game, I think I gave him like 3 provinces worth of estates. So it's like, of course, I'm not going to come back from that.
You should feel fine sending them estates. Just send them curses afterwards.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I think I just played it wrong, but I'm not going to base my opinion on Shepherd off of that disaster of a game. I don't even remember it anymore. So, anyway, we're going to go to the next one. And this one's probably, I don't know if it's controversial or not. I think it is, because I can't make up my mind on it. But it's Puka. And Puka is a 5-cost card. It's a terminal. And you may trash a treasure other than cursed gold from your hand, 4+4 cards. And what is cursed gold, you might ask? It's an heirloom that comes with Puka. And I guess I should mention now, I don't think I did, but I may have. But with heirlooms and action cards, there's an heirloom that's connected to each action card. And when you have that action card, you have that heirloom automatically in your deck at the start. I don't know if I made that clear. But every time you have Puka, you have to have Cursed Gold. So, Cursed Gold, it gives you 3 coin. It's costs 4, which is useless because you can't buy it, but it has remodeling properties and all that. But when you play Cursed Gold, you gain a curse. So, it has these bonkers openings where you can have upwards of 7 coin without even Baker or Borrow or any of that. You could open Province with the right Cursed Gold Borrow. You could open Province. I don't advise it unless it's like a tournament game. And even then I might not advise it. But yeah, you get to open 5, but you get a curse in your deck. So, what do you guys think of Puka? We're gonna start with Beyond Awesome.
Um.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be, well, Tracer probably is more
you'd
formulated.
really like Puka to be good, but I haven't been able to make it actually do that because terminal +4 cards at the start of the game is really dangerous with everything else you want to be doing, which is picking up your non-terminals, picking up your villages, your good cantrips to accelerate, but you're drawing them dead. And at the same time, you're getting rid of all of your things that don't get drawn dead, or your treasures, and then Cursed Gold is adding curses on top of it, and just ends up looking ugly.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Puka is awful.
Yeah,
I think it's really bad. It's funny because I started out being like this Puka truther, and and then like a bunch of users are like, no, Puka's not that good, and I'm like, it cycles you 4 cards and it trashes a copper. Of course it's great, and you get to open it with Cursed Gold. But the thing is if you open it with Cursed Gold, you get a curse in your deck. You're trashing a copper with Puka, which will most likely miss the shuffle, so you won't get to play it again. And then by that time, you already have 3 estates, 1 curse, 1 dead card in Cursed Gold because you don't want to play it again. And then you have just 6 coppers in your deck, and your chance of getting good cards is pretty low. So I think Puka is more of a thing you pick up later if you pick it up. And I don't know. I've been starting to experiment with not opening Puka, and it's been pretty successful. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Puka's really bad.
Yeah, I don't know. The couple of
that's
games,
that's the first hot take of the night. Puka's terrible.
Yeah,
you've heard it here first.
The couple of games that I've played against the bot, when Puka came out, I went to open Puka, and 4 turns in, I'd go, okay, this isn't working. Undo to the start, and let's not do that.
I will say with Lucky Coin, the heirloom, we'll talk about it later. Even with that, I don't think I'd open Puka, but we'll talk about it later.
There was one good Puka board that had Delve, and so it was worth it.
Yeah, that could work.
It was a money Puka board.
Oh, that's weird.
I've had a couple
Delve money Puka board.
A board where you have to trash all your treasures, and it's a money board. That's so weird.
I've had a couple of
Nocturne is so.
I've had a couple of Puka games where it's the only draw, and that's exceedingly awkward. It's only time I got it to end up working was Grave Robber, and I was trashing Horn of Plenties and regaining them, and even then it just did not feel good.
Yeah, Puka really hurts. The Cursed Gold, it really is a curse. It definitely feels like a curse. Like, you're buying a 5-cost card, and you're like, yeah, and then you have a curse in your deck, and man, unless you have really good trashing, you're feeling it. Like, having 4 junk cards in your deck at the start of the game actually really changes the game. Especially, it's really effectively 5 junk cards, because you don't want to play Cursed Gold again, you know? So every time you play Cursed Gold, your deck's getting worse and worse and worse. And like the benefits of it are getting worse and worse and worse. It's like, it's a really balanced card. Like, you think it's like busted, and then you actually play with it, and it's like scary bad. It's scary. Like, I like it. I like just Cursed Gold itself is really cool. So I'm happy this card's in the game.
You wouldn't buy a gold early, and you wouldn't buy a curse early, so it's not exactly something that's you spectacularly want.
Yeah, so it's like you have all these visions of sugar plums, and then it just becomes nightmare at Christmas. Nobody gets presents. Everybody gets curses. So we're on to the next cards. Well, Beyond Awesome, you didn't really talk about what you thought of Puka. What do you think it's any good? Do you think it's strong or not strong? Or
I mean, I think in general it's not strong. Cursed Gold definitely changes the game. I think most games are going to play it once, maybe twice, ever. Usually just to get a good 5-cost into your deck. But Cursed Gold is surprisingly not good at all either. I mean, it's good for the opening, and then it's not good because you gain a curse with whatever you got with it.
Yeah. We're not talking about edge cases where you just don't care if you get cursed or mountebank. There's like a whole meta there where like, oh, you do want a curse so you can block it and not get junked as much. Is that a thing you want or not? We could talk about this card for an hour, honestly. There's other interactions where you don't want to play cursed gold, so you're effectively stuck with a 3/3 opening, and your opponent gets 4/2, and like, which is better? Like, there's so much meta with the cursed gold, and we're gonna be talking about it for a long time to come, I think. So it's a really well designed card. So we're on to the next card here, and it's a victory card. It's a really good victory card, I think. Spoilers, but it's Cemetery, and it costs 4, and it comes with an heirloom called Haunted Mirror, which is like the scariest Dominion art ever. But Cemetery gives 2 victory points, and when you gain it, trash up to 4 cards from your hand. So it's Chapel. It's like a gain Chapel kind of. And Tracer, when do you think of Cemetery?
It trashes. It acts more like Count than it does Chapel, just because you do have to put the extra dead card in. And even then, I wouldn't say it acts much like Count. You have to.
Well, I'm just saying Chapel because it's the 4 cards from your hand.
Yeah,
that's the Chapel line.
Well, you're adding a green card with it. The card itself is terrible. It's the on gain that you're really worried about. You usually have to delay this a bit because you actually have to be drawing before it does anything useful for you, because you need to spend 4 to buy it. That is one thing to maybe mention with the Cursed Gold. Doing that early, it might end up being worth it because you can actually get a couple cards out of your hand. But
yeah,
I actually haven't been that impressed with it. Towards the end, it can be nice as an alternative to Duchy to get a couple curses out or Cursed Copper. But as I say, I haven't been really impressed with it so far.
All right, Beyond Awesome, what do you think of Cemetery?
I think Tracer is mostly right, actually. So Cemetery is good when you are drawing your deck and the trashing is either very weak or there isn't any trashing on the board to begin with. So you want to draw it then, or you just want a board that has Alms and Cemetery on it, which I have not had happen yet, but I've heard it's pretty awesome.
Wow, that does sound really good, actually. Hey, because you just straight up gain it. You just buy Alms. You could open double Cemetery.
Yeah, that sounds pretty incredible.
That sounds all right. I mean, that's probably suicide because there's probably like you could open Cemetery something else, but I'm just saying that considering nothing else. That could work. It's weird. Other weird quirks to note is since it's when you gain this, if you say swindle a 4 cost and give them a Cemetery, they get to trash.
Yeah, we had that one earlier today.
We did. And I'm like, all right, I'm undoing. And Tracer granted it because he's great. But some people will not grant you undos because they're bad people. Or because they have some like weird ethical, moral thing with undoing. So be careful and note that because that could trip you up. It probably won't. Like there's like ambassadoring them cemeteries for whatever reason.
I'd be happy to ambassador them cemeteries. Cemetery is a terrible card.
It's kind of 2 estates packed into one, and like if you trash 2 estates with it, hey, there you go. You squish 2 estates into one. It's a cemetery now. There's probably some commentary there. If you have too many estates, it's bad, and cemeteries too. It's stupid. Okay, we're gonna talk about the heirloom attached to Haunted Mirror, and it actually combos pretty nice with Cemetery. It's really good game design by Donald. Haunted Mirror, and it's a treasure heirloom, costs 0. It gives you 1 coin, just like a normal copper, and it has really scary art, so you want to get rid of it as fast as you can, because the less you look at it, the better. And it says, when you trash this, you may discard an action card to gain a ghost from its pile. And ghost is one of the 3 spirits. Imp is one of them, ghost is the other, and then the third is Will-o-wisp. And this is going to be a repeating theme throughout this discussion. But yeah, haunted mirror. You have to have an action card in hand, but if you discard it, when you trash the haunted mirror, you get ghost, and that's like your one and only shot to get ghost with haunted mirror. Tracer, how often do you do this? Is it any good? Does it slow you down initially, pick you up? What are your thoughts on this interaction here? How often does it change the game?
Ghost is a great card because it acts a lot like Summon, where you can buy something and then you're playing it right away the very next turn. Haunted Mirror itself, there was one time I didn't do that because there was Keep in the Kingdom, so that's something to mention with heirlooms, is trashing them when Keep is around is occasionally not such a great idea.
Ooh.
I don't know that there's too much to say about it. Yeah, you want Ghost. Ghost is great. Speaking of the art, you should figure out a way to make the thumbnail for this video the inverted haunted mirror. Make sure nobody watches it.
I'll do it. Don't worry. I'll make a special edition just for this. It'll be haunted mirror inverted.
Oh.
It'll be so scary. I'll have inverted of like the alien from that
Exorcist,
other card too.
yeah.
I believe Exorcist. Yeah, I'll just have inverted of like all of them. It'll be scary. It'll be like Nocturne, spooky or something. Anyway, Beyond Awesome, what do you think about haunted mirror and ghost? Same questions to you that I asked Cracer.
It's wonky to trash it. Sometimes you have to work hard to trash it. And there are cases where you're just going to trash it and you're like, okay, maybe I don't need the ghost, and that might happen. But usually you want ghost because ghost is really good. If you're drawing your deck, essentially it thrones whatever card you buy that turn. If you're not drawing your deck, you get to throne something. I just wish that ghost was easier to get. I mean, there's another card that lets you get it, but Ghost.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, Ghost is a hard card to get, but it's really good as far as throne variants go, because it's a duration throne, and pretty much that card that it thrones is like Tracer said, it's like summoning it, but summoning it twice.
Okay. I like Ghost, but user's warning. Again, you have to be kind of careful with. You have to be like finessey with Ghost. You have to like. You can't just like hack. You have to like prick. Thrust around. Because I remember a game, and it was earlier today. I was doing double province, and then I got like a festival, and then I played Ghost, and it hit festival first, and then it top decked my 2 provinces, and that led me to dudding, which led me to losing the game just straight out, and I was super ahead. So like that shit happens. So be careful. Don't like keep that in mind when you're playing Ghost, because stuff like that can happen. Like, of course, if you're ghosting like a draw card, you're not gonna care. But you can trigger some really nasty shuffles with Ghost. So you got to be careful. Like, think about not playing Ghost. You just have to be aware of your deck. So it's a high skill card again, Ghost. So it's gonna favor people who are experienced with Dominion far more than a novice. Like more so than normal, I think. It's a good card. Tracer is right. It's like summon. Well, I think he's right, I should say. I shouldn't say he's just straight up right, because who knows? It might be the new Harvest, but I doubt it. That's probably not as bad as Harvest. So we're on to the next card here, Faithful Hound, and this one's pretty weird, I think. Beyond Awesome. Before I got to talk about Faithful Hound. It costs $2. It gives +2 cards, so it's a moat, kinda, and it's a reaction, which also makes you think a moat. When you discard Faithful Hound, other than during cleanup, you may set it aside and put it into your hand at the end of your turn. So Beyond Awesome, what do you think about Faithful Hound? It's a weird gimmick. Is it useful? Is it just a weird gimmick? Is it like how often does it come into play?
Well, I will say this. I've been buying it a lot, and I'm not sure how good it is just yet. The effect is definitely different because you're setting aside. It works well against discard attacks. There are things where you can storeroom your Faithful Hounds and draw them up the next turn, or Tactician the Faithful Hounds, draw them up. So there's a lot of Wandering Minstrel. No, wait, Wandering Minstrel doesn't discard the Hounds. Never mind. But there are a lot of tricks you can do with it. The question is it worth it? Because it's moat. Essentially, I mean, it's draw 2 cards, terminal, so it's not the best draw ever. Essentially, you discard them 1 turn so that on the next turn you have more cards in your hand. I'm not sure how good that is. I think it's okay. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. I think it's just okay. In some decks, there are ways to make use of it pretty well, and other times it's a very ignorable card.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. It's a 2 cost. Tracer, what do you think about Faithful Hound?
I mean, it draws. That's the main thing that you get out of it is you have +2 cards, and sometimes that's going to be exactly what you want, exactly what you need. And the reaction, I mean, you trigger it when you can because it'll go into your hand the next turn, and that's like drawing 2 cards at the start of your next turn. It just happens to be that it's set to be Faithful Hound, and I mean, it's just a card. It's a solid, it's not maybe not solid, but it's +2 cards, and sometimes you need +2 cards.
Yeah, I think later Dominion expansions have kind of spoiled us, and we just up our noses at +2 cards. That's a terminal. Sometimes you have to. I think I played an engine recently. No, I didn't play an engine recently. My opponent did, and it was just like Workers Village and Moat, and that was the only draw. And I didn't play it because I'm just like, oh, it's freaking Moat, and I lost hard. So, like, don't do that. It's draw. You have to think about it. But yeah, this card combos with a lot of stuff. It combos with Dungeon, Forum. You can just discard it continually, and you'll just have bigger hand sizes. Recently, I think Titan Drake and a couple others were experimenting with Storeroom Faithful Hound, and that sounds really good. But, of course, you have to have Storeroom in hand guaranteed every turn for it to work. So it didn't really work out well, but if there's a way for you to save the Storeroom every turn or haven it or something, which there shouldn't be a way to haven it, but maybe save it, it could be good. It's something to look into. Like there might be some really broken strategies with Faithful Hound because it's a very MLG pro card. You know, just like, oh, look at me discard Faithful Hound and use it next turn. I think it's pretty underwhelming. It's all right.
I don't know. Most of the time, I would rather draw 2 cards this turn than have it in hand next turn. So,
yeah, it's all right. And if you don't like him, he'll still like you because he's a Faithful Hound.
So the eyes are just weird.
Oh yeah. So next we're up to previews number 3, and before we continue, we're gonna talk about the 3rd spirit card, which is Will-o-wisp. We've talked about Imp, we've talked about Ghost, and now we're on to Will-o-wisp. This one you also cannot gain from the supply. You get it from specialized cards. Will-o-wisp you can get from a couple cards. You can get it from Exorcist, and you can get it from these boon cards. And boons are a bit weird. They're little mini bonuses. They give small beneficial effects. You play cards that say gain a boon, and you do. You just draw from the top of your deck. You don't see it. It's they're face down. You draw it, do whatever it says, and then set it on the discard for the boons. And then once you go through them all, you shuffle them. So there's really no way to guess what boon you're going to get unless you play with something like Druid. But we'll get to Druid. But yeah, Will-o-wisp. one of these boons is just gain a Will-o-wisp. So we're going to talk about that. And again, we're not really going to talk about the boon effects because most of them are pretty basic. Like, oh, one draws you a card. Okay, well, that's pretty straightforward. One draws you a... Like, the point is we're not going to rank them because they're highly dependent on the situation, and you have no control over what you're going to get most of the time. So it's kind of pointless. But yeah, we're going to talk about Will-o-wisp. So Will-o-wisp costs 0. It gives you +1 card, +1 action. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it costs $2 or less, put it into your hand. So it's a Vagrant, it's a Patrician variant, those kinds of, like those crummy, oh, it's a cantrip that sometimes draws you an extra card, and it costs 2. Except this one doesn't cost 2, it costs 0. Beyond Awesome, what do you think of Will-o-wisp?
I think if there's a way to consistently gain them, which sometimes comes up with, like, say, Druid, it's really good. If you just get it, whatever. It's in general, it's better than Vagrant because it hits coppers as well as estates. It's like Settlers and Vagrant put into one card, so it's a pretty reasonable card. It's just you need it. Like if you don't gain a bunch, then you're sad.
Okay, Tracer, what do you think of Will-o-wisp?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to have them. I guess I talk about it with Exorcist, but there's one really nice interaction there. But you'd like to have a lot of them because they draw themselves too, which is convenient.
Oh yeah.
So if you can get a lot of them, you get a lot of them, and if you can just get them randomly, you get them randomly, and you're happy to have them. But they're good.
Yeah, they're quite good. Especially like the earlier the game is, the better they are. Like they're very solid. It's just straight up a lab most of the time in the beginning of the game. It's like landing your wishing well buys. I mean, you're guessing wishing well, and you just land it a bunch. It's like Will-o-wisp is like wishing well, kind of in that sense. So yeah, we're on to the next card, and it's a village. It's blessed village, and it's +1 card, +2 actions. It costs 4, and it's action fate, and any card that's fate, it gives you a boon in some way or has something to do with boons. So it's a standard village, but when you gain it, take a boon. Receive it now or at the start of your next turn. So it's not just on buy, it's on gain. Tracer, what do you think of Blessed Village? Or Blessed Village?
It's actually a pretty nice on-gain effect. It is certainly worth its extra cost over a normal village. Being able to have them at the start of your next turn is really nice. I don't know. It's a village. It has an on-gain effect. You buy it because you need a village. You don't buy it because you want the on-gain effect. So I've seen some people open it. I don't think that's correct. It usually isn't with a village, even with an on-gain effect. Maybe Border Village, but that's special. But yeah, it's a village. You buy it because you need a village.
All right. Beyond Awesome, what do you think of Blessed Village?
It's a village, like Tracer said. The on-gain effects are sometimes worth getting over, say, Walled Village, maybe Plaza at times. I mean, if there's good villages like Port, Wandering Minstrel, you want to get those villages instead because they're just better. But I mean, it's all right. Sometimes you want to be careful about Mountain's Gift, which gains you a silver. If your deck doesn't want silver, if you note what boons are coming out, and if Mountain Silver hasn't came out yet, you might not want to buy a Blessed Village at that certain point. I mean, there have been games where I've gained silver from the boons, and I'm like, oh, I really don't want that silver.
It's not as bad as you're saying, but it's kind of funny that it's like you get a boon, and it's like, oh, I have to gain a silver. It's worse than a curse. Darn it.
I mean, if there were a village with an on-gain effect of gain a silver, you'd still buy it most of the time just because you need villages. You should be happy to get the village, and sad that you get the silver rather than something else, but it's a village. That's what we keep saying.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a village. That's pretty much the meat and bones of it, and the potatoes, and the side, and the dessert. So next up, we're having this card called Idol. And it costs 5. It's a treasure. And it gives you 2 coin. So it's a stash variant. Remember stash? Remember that card exists?
Stash variant.
Well, I should say like Royal Seal variant. It's silver at 5 that does something other than just be a silver. So, Idol, when you play this, if you then have an odd number of idols in play, receive a boon. And if you have an even number, each other player gains a curse. So, if you play 2 idols, you give each other player a curse. If you have 3 idols, you receive a boon. 4 idols, curse again. You get the picture. Beyond awesome, what do you think of Idol?
So it's continues the trend of weak attacks. Relic from Adventures is the better treasure attack because you only need 1. It's sort of like Legionary, which is overrated by some people because some people think that Legionary is great, which it isn't because you need to collide 2 cards to make it work. So essentially you need to collide 2 cards to curse your opponent. Or, I mean, I guess maybe you want it for the boons and you play 1 every turn just to get a boon. I don't know if boons are that great, though, where you really want to necessarily be doing that. So the board has to be strong enough where there's no other attacks, but you're drawing your entire deck where you can afford to, say, have 2 idols. I think 4 is overkill just because the more stop cards you have, the less likely you are to be able to draw your deck.
Okay. Tracer, what do you think of Idol?
Well, it's certainly better than silver. Yeah, you want to be getting 2 of them into play. One thing to look out for there is if you have something like Counterfeit or Crown, doing that to your second one is pretty nice because you can drop 2 curses in at once.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just it goes into your deck drawing engine. It curses. That's good. On the other hand, in something like money, the individual bonuses from the boons are going to matter a lot more, and the curses are going to matter a lot more. So you might want to think about loading up on idols instead of buying gold, especially if you're playing some kind of draw variant money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cursor. You'll get your boons. Sometimes those help. Sometimes they don't very much, especially since it's going to be the very end of your turn.
Yeah. Oh boy, I got the
discard.
got the idol that gives +1 action. That's so
discard
useful.
3 for a gold when I already have all my treasures played. Yeah.
Well, play idol first, so before anything else. That's the moral of the story.
Yeah, but the boons are nice to have, so it's a little bit more than a 2, maybe, which you'd expect because it does cost 5. So it'll be good to have 2 of these, maybe 4, depending on how much draw you have, and if you have that much draw.
I think 4 is over.
What?
I think 4 is overkill, even if you have a bunch of draw.
I don't-
Like if you're
I don't-
drawing
I don't
that
think 4
much.
is overkill.
Oh, we have a hot take.
Yeah.
Silver is good, according to
Yeah,
Tracer.
silver is good when you're kinging wards.
All right, that's a good point.
But an idol is better than silver, so get idol instead.
All right, idol. I think you guys are underplaying how good it is. I think it's quite good, and I think usually the max number you want is 2.
Good.
Yeah, you're just like, yeah, it's better than silver. It's way better than silver. Mainly because of the cursing. The boons are just a nice little bonus. Like, if it was just idle and you just had to play 2 of them to give curses out, I'd still get it a lot of the time. For more sloggy-ish decks, you probably pick up 3 or 4, just because you can't
8.
guarantee connecting 2, but...
Kind of like Relic.
8? Get 8 idols?
Well, if it's a sloggy deck.
Okay, sure. All right, you might have a point there. I don't know. But like for most engines, I think it's worth it to pick up 2 idols because you just lob a curse at them, and you don't have to spend an action to do it, and it's economy, so you don't need silver that much.
You might end up seeing this attack, the timing of it work a lot like Replace, where you need to be kind of built up before it's worth actually attacking with it, because you actually have to be built up in order to attack with it, in this case, rather than having the desire. That's just an offhand remark.
Okay, that's good. It's useful. It's going to be a card, I think, that every time I've ignored it, I've lost. And every time I didn't really go too hard for it, I've lost. But, I mean, we're playing with small samples. We're still figuring things out. But I think it's a strong card.
We're also playing with the Nocturne cards, which are questionable strength.
Yeah. I think Idol is one of the stronger Nocturne cards. But
in a weak deck.
Yeah,
in a weak deck, the curses will matter a lot more.
Yeah. We'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting how Idol does. So we're on to the next card, and I think it's my favorite 2-cost card. I can't think of a 2-cost card I like more. Druid. And it gives +1 buy, and you receive one of the set-aside boons, leaving it there. And for the setup, you set aside the top 3 boons face up, and they're just there the rest of the game. And anytime you play Druid, you can pick one of the 3, and it will do that effect. So it's kind of like a pawn variant in that, you get to choose whatever you like. Sometimes it's really good. Sometimes you can get a Will-o-wisp every time you play a Druid, and that's busted good, and you should be on the watch out for that. Sometimes you can trash a card every time you play a Druid. And then sometimes you gain a silver every time you play a Druid, and you probably don't want that. So you got to look at all 3 of the bonuses for Druid and kind of think, do I want this in my deck? And the answer is you probably do anyway, because it gives +buy. So a lot of what to talk about with Druid really depends on what boons you draw on the deck, and that's kind of the important thing to note. And I think both of you can agree on that. But here's an interesting question. How often are you going to pick up Druid just for like that boons bonus? Tracer.
Just for the boons bonus? Well, it depends on the boons. Independent of the boons, you buy it when you need +buy. There's a couple boons. You mentioned the trashing and the gain of Will-o-wisp. Those are going to be probably the main ones that you pick it up for. Possibly also the action coin or the card, just because that makes it a pretty competent +buy card. But I don't think it's very good. There's going to be sometimes when you want a couple of them just because they have that really strong boon, but it's not that great.
Interesting. I find myself picking it up for the discard a treasure to gain a 4 quite a bit.
That's another good boon. Should have mentioned that one.
Usually I've had a lot of success with that one. I know I lost a game to Tracer recently because I opened Druid Magpie or something and I used it to gain a bunch of stuff, but it was still really close. Like, I was competitive, so it may have been just fine and I messed up somewhere else. But yeah, I like Druid. It's really interesting. And beyond awesome, how often do you find yourself picking up Druid just for the boons?
It's pretty much contingent on the boons. You mentioned all the boons that it's usually worth getting for.
Yeah, sorry to shoot you in the leg, but
yeah, I mean, I guess if the game is really sloggy, maybe the silver boon is actually good. Which it has to be a really bad board though for that to be good.
I don't know that I would want a card that just says gain a silver.
Yeah, and Squire already does that. So, yeah, I mean, if you have the trashing boon and there's no other trasher, pick it up. The Will-o-wisp is probably worth getting it for that, because getting Will-o-wisp is usually good. So that's a good reason. And the Gainer's, I mean, it's a nice workshop variant that gives you +buy, but I mean, most of the time, well, there's usually going to be at least one good boon, and then you get it for the plus buy, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of funny. If you set aside the plus buy druid, you get plus 2 buys and a coin. That's kind of cute. I can pile the ruins. Cool. All right, we're on to bonus preview number 3, and man, this one has spawned so much controversy, but not for the reason you'd expect, and that's why I already hate this card. And it's called Fool, and I love the name Fool, but it's a weird card. So it's an action fate card, so it deals with boons. It's a terminal. It costs 3. And if you are not the player with Lost in the Woods, take it. Take 3 boons and receive the boons in any order. And let me clarify, this only happens if you didn't take Lost in the Woods. All of these things only happen if you don't take Lost in the Woods. And Lost in the Woods, of course, well, not of course, I didn't even explain this to you. There's this new thing in Dominion that comes with Nocturne called states, and they're specialized things that just happen when you have it. So like this state called Lost in the Woods, at the start of your turn, you may discard a card to receive a boon. And this time, there's only one state. There may be cards with more than one state. I have no idea. But in this one, it's kind of like a duck, duck, goose kind of thing, or a hot potato thing, where every time you can take the Lost in the Woods by playing Fool. And, well, is it worth it? Is it worth taking 3 boons and having the discard boon effect? Is it worth having this crappy terminal in your deck the rest of your game, to have this initial 3 boon boost? That's one question that's important about Fool, not grammar. And of course it comes with an heirloom that is also very interesting. And it's called Lucky Coin. It gives it costs 4. And it gives $1. And when you play this, you gain a silver. So it's Beyond Awesome's favorite Dominion card because it gains tons and tons and tons of silver if you play it recklessly. Beyond Awesome, what do you think about Fool and Lucky Coin and Lost in the Woods and all of that? It's kind of complicated to talk about. There's a lot to talk about with Fool.
Yeah, well, I have no idea what to think of Fool. I think my initial impression is that Fool is actually weak, but maybe I'm wrong. I think it's good if you're able to draw your engine and maybe both players are just drawing their deck and they're able to both play Fool every turn and you just get the 3 boons. But I think if, say, one player goes for Fool and you're just building up, that the player who just tries to build is going to do better than the player who buys Fool over, say, something else most
so
of the time.
So you're saying they're foolish for going for Fool.
But, I mean, if your deck has the extra space, then sure, get it. Now, Lucky Coin, it's like Cursed Gold. I usually find myself playing it like once or twice and then being done. The one upside is that you don't have to actually worry about ever buying silver anymore. So you can open like Ironmonger or something and then be like, oh, I don't have to get a silver. And then the one thing I noticed is that your economy builds up a little bit faster. I don't really like Lucky Coin, but I mean it's reasonable. It's like it's almost like a non-terminal jack, so it's okay. I mean the bad side is that sometimes
Tracer has some strong opinions about Jack of all trades.
Well, the one thing though is like Cursed Gold, you now added 3 extra cards to your starting deck instead of 2, so your starting cards are more likely to miss your shuffle. So that's another thing that the extra silver does.
Okay. What about Lost in the Woods?
Lost in the Woods. If you have it, you have it. That's all I have to say on it.
Really? Like, you don't think it's that good? Do you think it's all right?
I think it's all right.
Discarding a card to receive.
I mean, yeah, it's all right. I mean, sometimes you're gonna draw a card. Sometimes you're not gonna do anything at all. And sometimes you get an extra coin for that turn. So
Hey, sometimes you gain
it's
a
all right.
silver.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you get another silver. Oh boy, another silver. Oh man, I'm gonna buy all the provinces up one at a time while the engine player cruises past me and gets a bunch of triumphs. Boy. Anyway, so your impression of Fool and all of its derivatives, you would say, is on the weak side.
My initial impression is on the weak side, but you do want to play it if you can draw your entire deck.
Okay. Tracer, what do you think about this conglomerate of 3 cards, the unholy trinity of silver gain?
All right, so I think we're gonna start with Lost in the Woods for me, and that's the Lost in the Woods is good. It's worth having. A boon is usually going to be better than one of the cards that you have in hand. It can be copper, silver, gold, goons. Because goons doesn't draw, so you don't need it in your starting hand.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's a hot take right there. Anyway, keep going.
So if your opponent's going to let you have Fool uncontested, then yeah, you want to do it once, and then you can get rid of the Fool. And if they're going to contest Fool, well, then you get 3 boons every turn, which isn't exactly a terrible card. So I think Fool is worth buying most of the time.
But is it worth opening?
Opening, maybe. If you have something better to do, then yeah, you're not going to open Fool. But if you need to hit 5, maybe you're not going to open Fool. Although I saw Lime Time open something like Fool Skulk the other day and spike.
What?
Spike.
Did he win? How badly did he get crushed?
No, he won. He spiked 7 for inheritance turn 3.
Oh. What? What?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. So.
That shouldn't happen.
Well, his opponent actually did it too. Also opened Fool Skulk and hit 7 turn 3. So.
Oh man. Jeez. All right. I guess we're gonna have to get Breppert on again to calculate the odds of hitting 7 with Fool's Gold Shulk opening. Oh man.
But yeah, I think Lost in the Woods is good enough that you're gonna want to Fool pretty early. There's gonna be better things to do with your 3 sometimes, but I actually don't think there's gonna be better things to do that often. So I think you're gonna want to open one of these pretty often. Lucky Coin.
Pretty often.
Yeah, pretty often.
Wow. I don't think that's true at all. All right. We're gonna have some crazy hot takes about Fool. That's
Lucky Coin. You gain a silver. We all know how great gaining silver early is, which is good, and then you get 1 shuffle in, and then it's terrible most of the time. The great thing about Lucky Coin is when you go to play a bot, it makes them somewhat competent, which is cool because it actually puts a timer on your game.
Sweet.
But yeah, it's really good for money because that's what the bot plays, and it works for the bot. So it'll probably work for you too. Man, I'm getting tired.
Oh man. It's fine.
And so yeah, you have Lucky Coin and it gains a silver. If you want silver gains, you keep playing it. If you don't want silver gains, you try to get rid of it as fast as possible.
All right. So Breppert's more negative. You're more positive on Fool. Fool is terrible. It's just straight up awful. It's not good. I've ignored it in every time I've won. But then again, I've played weaker people. So, I mean, I have not been impressed with Fool in the slightest. The Lost in the Woods discard, it's all right. It's whatever. I really like the card art for it though. Yeah, there's really not much to say. You guys said it all. So we're on to the next the next cards, and these are the more hexy ones. And I guess we could talk a little bit about some of the more powerful hexes, but I mean, they're pretty standard and it's pretty random draw. I guess we could talk about the worst hexes to land, but that'll probably just happen while we're talking about these cards. So we'll start with Werewolf.
Actually, I'd like to mention that unlike a lot of people, I think boons are more good than hexes are bad. Just okay. We'll note that
really?
And move on. Because
I think I'd rather hex someone than get a boon. That's a hot take, Tracer.
Yeah. Well,
what do you think about this, Prepper? What do you think about this Beyond Awesome?
I'm pretty sure that I'd rather hex someone than get a boon, like 99% of the time.
90% of the time. You hear that, Tracer? What? We got to get some controversy in this podcast, some Skip Bayless style hot takes.
Yeah, I don't think hexes are. I mean, they're not as strong as, say, just straight up cursors. So I don't know that hexes are that good. There's a couple of them that you'd really rather not get, but there's a couple of boons that you'd really like to have. So I think it evens out, and I think the mediocre boons tend to be better than the mediocre hexes. So
all right, that's fair. We're gonna talk about Werewolf now. The card that doesn't have Werewolf on it, and a lot of people are upset about that. More drama about Nocturne. So Werewolf, it costs 5. It's an action and night card, and it's a Doom card, which sounds really cool. All the Doom cards have to deal with hexes. So Werewolf, if it's your night phase, each other player receives the next hex, and hexes work just like boons. You draw them face side down. Once you go through them all, you shuffle them, you put them back. It's the same deal. It's just a spooky, scary instead of a happy kind of thing. So if it's your night phase, each other player receives the next hex, otherwise plus 3 cards. So if it's not your night phase, you're going to get plus 3 cards from it. So it's a smithy that attacks if you don't draw with it. Beyond Awesome, what do you think about Werewolf? And tell me whether you like the card art not depicting a werewolf. Do you like this bold decision
werewolf.
by... It's not a werewolf.
Yeah, it's a werewolf.
Well, it's a werewolf in human form.
So?
All right, we're gonna argue about this forever. All right, Beyond Awesome, you got to talk about Werewolf.
A lot of times I've been buying a lot of werewolves. If I can draw, well, the good thing about werewolf is that it draws. So you draw a bunch with your werewolves, and then you have some left over, and you hex your opponent a lot, which is nice.
Nice. Do you think it's a strong card?
I think it's a pretty strong card. I'm not sure how strong it is just yet. I have to play with it more, but it does draw, and its attack is non-terminal, and you can never draw its attack dead. So
Sweet.
The question is, like, what else? What other 5s do you want in your deck?
Well,
is what it comes down to.
This might be another instance of Nocturne cards are overall weak, so it's influencing our perspective. I've found Werewolf to be very strong, but there aren't a lot of draw cards in Nocturne. It's very sloggy, it's very random. So, like, the consistency of Werewolf drawing and then attacking when you don't have to draw with it, it seems very strong, but is it really that strong? Or is it just Nocturne tricking you? Tracer, what do you think about all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it draws cards, so yeah, it's strong. Yeah, that's my thing, isn't it?
That's all you're gonna say about it.
It draws cards, so it's strong. The attack is a nice thing for when you don't need to use them to draw, but drawing, if drawing is going to be productive, it's usually going to be better than hexing your opponent. I think Dan mentioned that at some point.
I agree with that.
It reminds me a lot of Rabble in a way where you buy it because you need to draw cards, but the attack also does something, but it'll shut down money, but that's what attacks do. Yeah, it draws.
Oh no, all that silver gain.
Draws
From
3
Lucky
cards.
Coin.
It's a good card. Draws. Buy it for 5 if it
All
just
right,
said
what-
plus 3 cards.
All right. I guess the only thing to talk about with Werewolf is the art discussion. So now we could just go at each other's throats. What do you guys think of the bold decision to not include a werewolf on the werewolf card?
It's a werewolf. Oh, what you guys is
No, it's
problem
not.
is.
It's just a person.
We forgot to mention court here.
Courtier?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's a second 4 type that we have, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, sweet. So Dame Josephine is once again not interesting. Wow. All right. Well, that didn't take long. I really like the bold decision to not include a werewolf on the werewolf card. Like, yeah, you can say, oh, it's a werewolf, but how do you really know? It looks more like a basketball player. Like every time I look at him, like he's got a sweatband.
It's a werewolf.
He has the red eyes.
I don't even see red eyes. If that could be just the reflection off of the sunset. I'm
Also,
like, all right.
seriously, there's
On
only
the
like
YouTube video, I will zoom in on those eyes.
there's like
for werewolf,
one out of
and the audience can decide for themselves
There's
whether it's
wolf-
really red eyes.
there's one
Or if it's just
there's
the
one
sunset.
out of every 28 days, and that's only at night that the werewolf looks like a wolf. So why would you make it look like a wolf?
because it's more interesting when it's a werewolf. You don't want to just stare at some guy, like. Yeah, he's a buff guy. And
Oh,
I'm
the
sure
other
he's, like, a nice
the other
guy.
really nice thing is the theme here, because if you look over to the left of the art, you'll see an anvil, which means that the werewolf's day trade is a smithy.
Oh my
And during the
god!
day, it's plus 3 cards, and during the night, it attacks.
Ah, that's good. That's what? Ugh. Wow, that's crazy. I'd never even noticed that. That's crazy. Wow. Hey, there you go.
So there's your theme for the day.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. He's still a basketball player, but
Smithy.
whatever. He's a Smithy basketball player. He's a monster on the field. That's the real werewolf. He's a monster on the court. I don't watch basketball. I'm sure you can tell. So next we're on to Skulk. It's a 4 cost, and I like the art on it. It's pretty cool. Gives +1 buy. Each other player receives the next hex. So it's a terminal attack that just launches a hex at someone, at everybody, besides you. And when you gain it, you gain a gold. All right, Tracer, is this going to be a noob trap? And is this card even good? Because I don't think it is.
Skulk is good for gaining gold.
It
Yeah.
is.
If you want to gain a gold, it only costs 4, so that's cool.
Yeah, but then you get a lame terminal in it in with the
Trash
package deal.
the Skulk. Yeah, Skulk's
Okay.
terrible.
It really is.
It's good for gaining a gold. It's bad for playing. Hexes aren't that strong, so +1 buy. Give each player a hex. It's maybe comparable in strength to Sea Hag. Maybe a little
Wow.
bit weaker than Sea Hag.
It's definitely weaker than Sea Hag.
Hard to say. It gives a buy, which means it's actually sort of useful if there's things to.
Oh man. Yeah, Donald has recently discovered that putting plus buy on bad cards makes you want them. Like it's like, oh shoot, I made this terrible card. Let me slap a plus buy on it, and now people will get because they have to. Because if they don't, they lose. So it's interesting. Yeah, just slap plus buy on it. Like if Merchant Ship had plus buy, man, everyone would buy it. Wharf originally didn't have plus buy, and if it didn't, I don't think people would be nearly as high on it as they are now.
Wharf didn't have plus buy. It'd still be a great draw card, but
Worf
I
should.
mean, look at Enchantress, but yeah, continue.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah. Tracer, you gave your opinion on Skulk. I gave mine. Beyond Awesome, it's your turn. What do you think of Skulk?
Well, I mean, if Forge or Inheritance are on the board, open Skulk because that's a good idea.
I don't know about that. Because, money density, man. Like, oh, yeah,
Well,
you get a gold, but you get a card that gives... It's a glorified estate that gives out a hex and a vibe.
Forge, especially Inheritance, is just so worth hitting that it's worth it.
Yeah, you open
really?
Skulk Fool and you spike 7 turn 3 by that Inheritance.
All right, I'm leaving. All right. Yeah, that makes me so mad. You just open 2 terrible cards and you hit 7. That's unholy. Oh man, that should never happen. That's horrifying. That's horrifying to me. All right, you know what? We're done talking about Skulk. We're gonna talk about Cursed Village now. It costs 5. It gives +2 actions. Draw until you have 6 cards in hand, and when you gain it, you have to receive a hex. So you're cursing yourself.
No, not cursing, hexing.
Beyond Awesome. What do you think of Cursed Village?
Well, some of those hexes can really hurt you. In general, if there's better engine stuff, like better villages, better draw, you go for that. If for some weird reason, there isn't, then I guess you get it. I know some people think it's great, and I mean, it gives you hexes, so I'm thinking, well, it must be good, but most of the time I've been able to ignore it, and that's usually been the right decision.
Interesting. Tracer, what do you think about Cursed Village?
Okay, first of all, it's a village, so when you need a village, you buy Cursed Village.
No duh, you just get Cursed Village because it's a village.
It can be a pretty strong village, drawing up to 6 in hand. We had a game with you earlier today where there was Margrave in it, and Cursed Village was great there.
And I didn't pick it up, and boy, did I pay for it.
Yeah. The hexes, gaining the hexes at the ends of your turns tend to not be very bad at all, just because a lot of them are discard an action or a treasure or discard down to 3. And when you have all your treasures in play, there's nothing to discard. So a lot of them don't really do anything when you do them to yourself. And drawing up to 6 can be really good, but it's a village. Sometimes you're going to prefer it because of its draw up to 6. Particularly against discard attacks, as was mentioned with Margrave. Also with Sifter's Warehouse Dungeon, that can be pretty nice.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, draw up to 6, it's a village. Draws and it's a village, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the main thing about it. It's a village.
I mean, one thing is it does cost 5, so that's a bit of a prohibitive price point for a village, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, you don't buy villages for 5 if you don't have to, but
well, I didn't, and I paid for it.
Well, yeah, that's because it was a Margrave game, and so drawing up to 6 did you a whole lot of good there. But
true.
In your standard game, you'd much rather have something else that isn't so dang expensive.
Okay, fair enough. I like it. I think Cursed Village is pretty good. It's probably on the upper half of good villages, I think. There's not much to say about it other than, the hexes don't hurt much. Does Diluted work on the same turn as you getting the village? Or is
Diluted is return at the start of the buy phase. Same with Envious.
Okay. All right, so those hurt you next turn.
Mm-hmm.
So those could be the ones that really screw you over. Everything else is just it's whatever. You gain a curse. Okay, cool. But yeah, they're mostly. I think it's a funny gamble, especially if your opponent hits one of the really bad ones. That might just encourage you to pick one up, just because you're more likely to hit it, one that doesn't hurt. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna pick it up anyway because it's a village. So we're on to Leprechaun. Oh man, I can't wait to talk about this one. Tracer, what do you think about? Well, let's talk about Leprechaun first. Leprechaun costs 3. It's a terminal. Gain a gold. If you have exactly 7 cards in play, gain a wish from its pile. Otherwise, receive a hex. And wish is it's a card you don't get from the supply. Costs 0. +1 action. Return this to its pile. If you did, gain a card to your hand, costing up to 6. So, all of those fantastic games you've had with Artisan, it's this, but you don't top deck a card, and you can gain it up to 6, and you get to play it for no penalty. So it's pretty strong. But you have to jump through a zillion hoops with Leprechaun. Tracer, is it worth it?
Well, I wouldn't pick up Leprechaun expecting to get wishes. I would pick up Leprechaun expecting to gain gold. If gaining gold is good, then you're going to get Leprechaun because it does that. And it gains gold, and hexing yourself isn't really that bad because hexes aren't that bad. And that's pretty much all there is to say. If you end up picking up wishes, that's quite convenient. But if you want to gain gold, you get Leprechaun because it does that.
Okay. Beyond awesome. What do you think about Leprechaun?
I've actually played quite a few Leprechaun games, and I have played it quite often, and I've never hexed myself. The decks I've played it in I was able to draw most of my deck and get use out of both the gold gain and the wish gain. So if you can play 7 cards where you're pretty much drawing your entire deck and you can use that gold and the wish, then it's pretty good. And I mean, it's not a terrible card. I mean, some people think it's bad. It's not bad because it's like a bandit. You know, bandit's a gold gainer. So if your deck is playing a lot of actions each turn, not only is it a gold gainer, but it gains you another card on top of that. So games where you want bandit, you might want Leprechaun.
Okay. I'm of the opinion that it's a terrible card. It's pretty bad. I mean, there's not much to say about it. I never get excited when I see Leprechaun. I'm never like, oh boy, here we go. But my opinion might change when I play with it more. I haven't really played with it.
Yeah.
There was a game where you opened Leprechaun and you didn't get a magpie either. I don't know why you didn't, but you didn't for whatever reason.
Yeah, and that game was, I think I was, half a turn off?
Yeah.
Actually, I wasn't even half a turn off. It was just ending draws, last shuffle. So
yeah, I don't.
No magpie was a mistake. Leprechaun wasn't.
Yeah, I think the Leprechaun actually worked for you there. So there's probably something to the gold gain thing. Because opening with a gold gainer, man. Oh boy, I get a gold in the 3rd shuffle. Sometimes not even that because gold can miss, Leprechaun can miss. So stuff can happen. But yeah, if you need a gold, you need a gold, I guess.
But yeah, I wouldn't ever pick it up expecting to get wishes. I would pick it up expecting to get gold.
Okay, so that might be an interesting thing to think about for the Leprechaun haters, of which I am one. Leprechaun is terrible.
I mean, gain a gold isn't exactly a great card, but
no, it's really not. That's why it's on Soothsayer. It gains a gold and it gives a curse, and it's still not a very good cursor. Oh man. We're on to the next set of cards, and these are going to be the final ones.
So
yeah. By the way, Nocturne is going to have a delayed release because some stuff didn't ship on time. So I think it's November 13th. Or is it 12th? I forget which. 13 would be on pretty thematic. Yeah, 13's pretty thematic. That worked out pretty well.
Well, I don't know if it'll be online on the 13th or if it's going to be online once, like, they say, oh, it's in the stores now, and then it's online. I don't know how that's going to go down.
Yeah, I don't either. But it's definitely coming out sometime in November, so be on the lookout for that. You will have to pay for it to be able to play with the cards, or have a friend who already bought them.
Pay for it.
Oh, man. And then these previews, the previewed cards, if you haven't played with them already, they're on Shuffle It right now. Probably by the time I release this, it'll be pretty much too late. So,
yeah, I think by the time this podcast is out, that it's going to be...
it'll probably be over.
Through this Sunday,
actually.
so 2 more days, I guess.
Yeah. I guess I could... Anyway, we're not going to talk about that.
We're
going to talk about Exorcist.
Non-Nocturne Dominion is great, too, though. You should play it.
Yeah, really. It's pretty good. So Exorcist is a night card costing 4. Trash a card from your hand. Gain a cheaper spirit from one of the spirit piles. It doesn't say this, so it really confused me. Exorcist automatically comes pre-packaged with the 3 spirit cards. Imp, Will-o-wisp, and Ghost. It doesn't say, like, set up, put them aside, and it's thrown me off. So for a little bit, I was thinking, man, this card's terrible, because if it doesn't have any spirit cards on there, it's no good. It just trashes a card a turn. And then I found out, it just comes with the cards every time. Is that a bit weird? Like, I find that it's a bit weird that it doesn't have, like, a setup. Do you find that odd at all?
I mean, Cultist doesn't have a setup, and it says take the ruins out. I mean, I guess the one thing here is it doesn't actually say, like, night, take out the spirits, but I don't know that it really needs to. You can just say, it says something about spirits. How about we have our spirits out?
Well,
okay.
Cultist says it's a looter, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. It doesn't say night, take out the spirits. Like, Cultist says action, attack, take out the ruins. So.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen anyone talk about
but also,
that. Maybe they did. Maybe they did in the threads, but I didn't
also,
see it.
ruins are a supply pile, so that's quite a bit different.
Yeah. All right. So Exorcist, it's a non-terminal trasher. You could trash estates, and then you get Will-o-wisps or Will-o-wisps. You trash a silver or something like that, you get imps. Oh boy, we've raved about imps before, and it's definitely worth trashing a silver, especially if you gained it from the mountain thing, the mountain boons thing, or a druid or something. And then you have to trash a 5 cost to get to Ghost. So, man, is that worth it? There's a lot of things to talk about with Exorcist, and that's the power level of the spirit piles. And to talk about Exorcist, you have to talk about the spirit cards. Beyond Awesome, what do you think about this giant package deal? How often is it worth it to trash for Ghost or for Imp or for Will-o-wisps? Do you open with Exorcist? Is it a good opener? Questions like this. What do you think about Exorcist?
Well, I haven't played with Exorcist enough to know. It probably is a reasonable opener because you turn an estate into Will-o-wisp, but I might be wrong here. I mean, all 3 spirits are really good. Like, Imp is really good. Ghost is really good. So Will-o-wisp is really good early game. So I think it's probably a reasonable opener, but please don't take my word at that. I'm pretty sure Exorcist is a solid card, though, based off how good the spirits are.
Okay. Fair enough. Tracer, what do you think about Exorcist?
Yeah, I mean, opening it can be really nice because you open it, you trash an estate, you get a Will-o-wisp, which is almost an automatic lab early on just because your deck is full of copper. If you need to hit 5, maybe it's not going to be the greatest thing just because it does act as a dead card for economy, but it'll get you accelerating because it trashes, it gets you stuff that draws. I think Imp is actually going to be the least gained off of Exorcist just because
really
trashing in the 3 to 4 range is going to be a lot more difficult than trashing in the upper range. Like if you say Exorcist your junk dealer that you've been using to trash, you're going to pick up your ghost rather than a imp, just because ghost is really, really good. It also notably allows you to get multiple ghosts so that you can alternate them on turn wise.
And before we continue, there are 13 imps. There are, I believe, 12 will-o-wisps and only 6 ghosts. So, in the supply piles. So that's all you've got for spirits. Just noting. Continue.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you'll get an imp. It's an okay copper trasher. It's a non-terminal. It doesn't really draw, so there's something to be said there. But you're going to trash estates first for your will-o-wisps, and those will draw, so that's fine. You're probably never going to get particularly thin with it, just because it costs 4. It only trashes 1 card at a time, and it's at the end of the turn, and you're going to want to trash more expensive stuff to get the powerful cards rather than copper, but it'll do the job sometimes, and it'll do the job well enough.
Okay. Exorcist is kind of a walkless card in a sense, because he loves trashing 1 card at a time and he thinks it's super good, but it also gives you a lab and will-o-wisp, so like it does both. That's why it kind of reminds me of a walkless, because like, why choose one or the other? You can do both. You can trash an estate and draw 2 cards, so you're really clearing out tons of junk. I've never regretted opening Exorcist every time I've done it. You kind of start out a little slower, so you feel like you're behind, but then you start drawing your deck every turn, and then the other guy who doesn't open Exorcist duds 1 or 2 turns, and then suddenly you're like blazing ahead. So unless you have like an immediate need, like, oh, there's Chapel on the board, or oh, there's Donate on the board, I think Exorcist is one of those cards that you're going to open a lot of the time. But that's just for my initial impressions. It could change, but I think it's a pretty good opener. Yeah, I think that's all there is to say about it. You're mainly going to trash your estates with it, and trash a couple coppers, get some imps. Ghost is a little hard to quantify. I think it's good, so it'll probably be worth trashing a 5 cost. Like, would you trash a hunting party for a ghost?
I did it earlier today, so
I guess you would. Okay, so I guess that settles that. I guess you think it's worth it. I'm not sure. It probably is.
I mean, you trashed your Margrave earlier, but that was your only draw, so that was silly.
That was really dumb. Yeah.
Don't trash your only draw.
Yeah, don't just trash things for Ghost, I guess. You got to be careful. So yeah, there's stuff to think about with Nocturne. It's not just oh, you get a random boon, oh, you get a random hex. There's thoughts that come into this. So we're on to the next set of cards here, and I think this is my favorite heirloom. It's Goat. I love Goat so much. But first, before we talk about Goat, we got to talk about Pixie. And Pixie is a 2-cost action, and it's a cantrip. And you discard the top boon. You may trash this to receive that boon twice. So it's interesting. It's kind of like it's an interesting one. It's kind of like a Pearl Diver thing. Like, oh, you pick it up just because why not? You only have $2 or you have $2 left over. You're not going to pick it up because it's this uber powerful card. But I like it. I really like picking one up. Just, like, oh, I don't want a silver and there's nothing at 3. I'll just get a Pixie. And, oh, hey, I get to trash 2 cards. Or, oh, hey, I get +2 buy and +2 coin with it. Sweet. And if I don't like the thing, I don't have to trash it. And I can just hold on to it for later. And you can even gain 2 silver with it. Hey. Is there anything else important about Pixie that, like, am I underselling it or overselling it?
it's worse than Pearl Diver, certainly.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Man,
Pearl
I
Diver's
don't.
pretty decent. Yeah,
What?
yeah, for a 2 cost, Pearl Diver's good. Can put the bottom card on top.
What? No.
No. Controls the top of your deck. It's decent.
No. No.
Pixie makes me unhappy because you have to trash it to receive the boon, and I don't know. I haven't played with it much, but I think it's certainly worse than Pearl Diver. Just because it's really just a one shot, which sometimes is good, sometimes isn't. Most of the time isn't.
Well,
just because, although boons are good, getting them kind of randomly is not quite as good.
okay. Well, man, you're already not going to get invited to another podcast because you just said Pearl Diver was a decent card. But I'm just joking. Beyond awesome. You better not say Pearl Diver's a decent card. What do you think about Pixie?
I'm in agreement with everything you said. It's not a card that you really it's not a card that I'm excited about. Because there's a lot of better 2s out there nowadays, but I would rather have it over Pearl Diver because usually at some point a good boon's going to come up and you're going to want that boon and you're like, okay, time to trash it because you don't care if you have it in your deck or not. But, sometimes at some point in a game, you're going to get a decent effect. Like, okay, cool, I got that effect. Yay. That's usually how it goes.
Probably popping a Pixie for 2 Will-o-wisps is probably really good.
Oh yeah, that I've done that. That is really good.
Yeah, that's probably the really good one. Now we're going to talk about the more interesting card of the two, which usually isn't the heirloom. It is the case with Puka. Oh wait, is that
and
usually
Fool and
Fool? Yeah, man. All right,
and
I take
Cemetery
that back.
and
Yeah, all right, I take it back. All the heirlooms are more interesting than the cards, but Goat is the most interesting of them all. In that, when you play it, you can trash a card from your hand. It's a copper. It's worth 2. And it essentially, you can get rid of an estate from your deck just straight up, unless you open 5-2 with the Goat in the 5. In which case you get 4-2, and you're probably still trashing a copper. Well, I guess it depends on the board. But Goat, it's surprisingly not as broken as I thought it would be. When I play with it, like, my deck doesn't accelerate quite as fast as I think it would, and it still struggles against Mega Cursors, because even though it's non-terminal, it's still only trashing 1 card at a time. It's plodding along like a goat.
well, and you can only get 1 of them, which is a big deal.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, you get to open with it, and you start with only 2 junk cards, like, 90% of the time, but, like, cursors, like, this isn't going to stop a fast cursor like Cultist necessarily. Like, you'll probably get clean quicker, but, like, don't just think you're safe because you have Goat. So that would be my wise words. There's not much to say about Goat other than, it trashes. It's just kind of like a game state thing. It's like donate. It's like, this is the thing. Well, this might be better than that then, just because of this. Are there any notable, interesting strategies with Goat that you can think of? I mean, there's shelters. You can trash an overgrown estate with Goat and just draw another card.
Yeah,
That's
I
interesting.
opened a 5 with that earlier today, so that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Very cool. Anything else of note? Like, maybe you trash
I like Goat a lot. I think it's a solid trasher. I think it's really, really, really good. On most boards, if you're able to pair with another trasher, you're going to get thin much faster than you normally would. So it's really strong. the fact that you get to trash on before your first shuffle is really good.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's really difficult to evaluate just because everybody has it. So
Yeah.
it's like don't be stupid with it, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. No. Okay. I mean, there's not much to say about it, just because everyone gets it. All right, so we're on to the next cards, Vampire and Bat, and these ones are pretty interesting. It's a night card, costs 5, Vampire, and it's also a Doom card, and thus it's also an attack. Each other player receives the next hex. Gain a card costing up to 5 other than a vampire, so you can't gain vampires with a vampire, and then you exchange it for a bat. And then Bat is trash up to 2 cards from your hand. If you trashed at least 1, exchange this for a vampire. It's also a night card. It costs 2. So both of these you're not playing any other time than your night phase. And Bat is not in the supply. You can only get it from vampire. So you play a vampire, get a bat, play a bat. If you trash anything with it, then you get your vampire back. And you probably want it back because it gains 5s and attacks people. Tracer, what do you think of vampire?
Really good. You could get rid of the attack and it'd still be really good. As I said somewhere on Discord that I didn't even realize that it had the attack, and I didn't.
That's really funny. I've said the same thing. Yeah. I didn't notice the attack, but I'm just like, if you take away the attack, I'd get it just about as often.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
It alternates gaining 5s and trashing, so I guess you call it. It's kind of like alter. We're doing comparisons here, so those always get a little bit weird. I don't know that it trashes particularly fast, just because you have to get a 5, and as I say, it's alternating, so you're going to be 4 shuffles in before you start seeing your bats. So it's still going to be better to trash with something else rather than depending on vampire. Whether to get one over a 5-cost trasher second shuffle is up for debate. I don't know yet, but it's going to be pretty formulaic which one you do. It's not really going to depend on the board that much.
All right, interesting. Yeah. Anything else?
It's solid. That can get a little bit annoying at the end, just because you do want to keep trashing cards to get your vampires back to gain the 5s, because at the end that's going to be more what you want to do. You're going to run out of cards to trash, and that gets a little bit ugly.
Because you want to gain those duchies or gain more action cards, and you can only do it once every 2 turns. So it's kind of balanced. It gets worse and worse as the game goes on, because your deck gets better, which is kind of interesting.
Well, it gets harder to use. It stays roughly the same strength.
That's kind of what I meant. Beyond awesome, what do you think about Vampire and Bat?
The first game I played a vampire, my opponent and I both had 5-2. It was an ambassador board. So I opened ambassador. I forgot what the other card was. I think it was like Pixie or something. And my opponent opened vampire. And I literally got crushed severely that game.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, there was also Werewolf on that board, so maybe I should have paid attention to that. That's probably why.
So I'm hearing a lot of nerfing of Ambassador with this board. So with this set.
Nah.
So, nah.
But I don't know if it still would have been as great if Werewolf wasn't on there, but I was so dead on that board. It wasn't even funny. I think it's really good. It's a Horn of Plenty in the sense that usually Horn of Plenty, you gain 5 costs with it anyway until the very end. So it's like that, except that it immediately starts gaining you 5 costs. You don't have to get a bunch of cards first to actually gain those 5 costs. And it comes with a Trasher. So, yeah, it's good. And then on top, it also attacks. So, yeah, it's a good card.
All right, nice. I guess I would just say I've never regretted buying a vampire early in the game. I've yet to regret it, so I think it's a really good card. Time will tell, what the exceptions are. Like, oh, don't get a vampire on this kind of board. Those will probably mostly be like the lurkers, catacombs, rush type, where it's just like, oh, you got to gun down and gain stuff instantly.
Well,
That's something I could think of instantly.
boards where you can't really draw are gonna have it suffer quite a bit.
Yeah, probably. Honestly, although it trashes and
Yeah, well,
that could be useful.
trashing 4 shuffles in isn't gonna mean too much on those.
True. All right, yeah. There's some stuff to think about there with vampire. Yeah. I can't think of anything else to say. I guess we'll go on to the last card, and boy, is this a weird one. The art's really weird too. Necromancer. It's like I can't tell if it's like sci-fi or magic. Like there's like weird growing red stoplight colored things. It's weird.
Just,
Oh my goodness.
bizarrely over detailed.
Yeah, it's like the junk dealer art. It's really ugly. I don't want to buy it just because it looks so ugly and tacky. But that's Dominion. That's the major theme of Dominion is bad art. So you can't have Dominion set without bad art.
I actually saw these
and I'm-
arts ahead of time, and I didn't think they were Dominion art. That's interesting. Just realized that.
Wow, that's fancy.
They look so. They look,
Nice.
All
they
the
look
expansions,
so
I think,
not Dominion-y.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Dominion. It just looks like a crappy sci-fi game. It looks just like some like crappy online MMO, and it's on a Dominion card. It's more horrifying than a zombie. Honestly, it's like I'd rather look at a zombie than this art. Anyway, Necromancer.
Well, I was just gonna make a quick art comment though. Of all the Dominion expansions, I think Nocturne has the most variance as far as art goes.
Oh,
What you don't like?
Well, at least
You
from-
don't like Seaside ranging from Wharf to Navigator?
Well, I mean, yeah, you get that, but there's like Nocturne is just all over the place. You have like the weird fish in a bottle thing, then you have vampire, which is really good.
Weird fish
and
in
you
the
have
bottle
Cursed
thing
Village,
looks
which is
good.
really good.
It's just really confusing.
I know. I mean, the art's just everywhere, and then you have Blessed Village, which seems like it's out of guild. It's like this.
Yeah, everyone's
I-
a little too happy in Blessed Village. It's like the Crayola dictatorship
Blast.
down there. Oh yeah, they're all chipper and happy, and yeah, just don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Because, I don't know. I guess I think the art in Nocturne is a lot better than bad. But boy, are there some stinkers in this one, like Necromancer.
Well, I'm not saying the art's bad. I'm just saying it's all over the place. I don't mean necessarily in a bad way. I just mean like the art is just so varied and it's just so different. It's like
Yeah, there's also a lot of cards that don't have people on them. So
Yeah. Well, Cemetery is pretty cool. That doesn't have any people on it, and that's a neat looking art. I like it. It stands out. But like then you have these boards where it's like all these epic looking arts, and then you just have Blessed Village just sitting there, and it's just like it just sticks out like the sorest thumb on the planet. It's
Also,
so ugly.
what Druid and Cursed Village are really, really bright on boards. So
Yeah, they are, honestly. And I guess we should talk about the Raider blue stripe. Like, there's this highly noticeable blue stripe on Raider, and Raider just looks like Microsoft Paint from a distance. Like,
and there's the
It's-
horse leaning over, and you can have all the debates about horse physics.
yeah, well, that's FDS elitism. Some people might not like that. So let's not talk about it. Let's talk about Necromancer, the card. It costs
Boring.
4. It is a boring card for how exciting it
Compared
is.
to the art discussion.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, with Necromancer, you play a face-up non-duration action card from the trash, so you can't play a Wharf, you can't play a Hireling, and you leave it there and turn it face over down for the turn. So after the turn, you'd flip it again. And that's just for tracking purposes, so you know not to play it again. So it says play face up. You don't play face downs because you already played them. And the setup is you put these 3 zombies into the trash. And you get a zombie here, Zombie Apprentice. Looks like the Joker. Looks like the Heath Ledger Joker. You have Zombie Mason with like this goblin-looking zombie and like a Keebler elf, like muscular edition on the very right. It's kind of cool. It looks like he doesn't even have a head. It's like the Replace guy, the executioner. He is like that Ku Klux Klan hood, except it's green, and he's just, or maybe that's like a safety cone on his head. I don't know. Like I don't know, but I like both of them. They're kind of cool. And then you got the zombie spy who looks like he just assassinated Julius Caesar and he's like escaping or something. Like he looks straight out of Empires for whatever reason. Yeah, all the zombie art's pretty cool. It's weird looking, but I like it. It's a lot better than freaking Necromancer because there's like not a glowing thing that looks really weird. Anyway, Zombie Apprentice.
Really weird. That's transmogrifying summon.
Yeah. Those are kind of weird. So Zombie Apprentice costs 3. Not that it's going to matter because it's in the trash. You can gain these with Lurker. And once you do that, well, all bets are off. But why you'd want any of these cards in your deck, I don't know.
I would put Spy in there, maybe.
Yeah. Oh boy, I get Zombie Spy in my deck.
Well, it means so the other person can't use it.
That's true. But then you have a crappy card in your deck. But so do they. It's called Necromancer, but it's crappy anyways. So Zombie Apprentice costs 3. You may trash an action card from your hand for +3 cards and +1 action. So it's kind of like Apprentice, except you're getting 3 cards every time, and you have to trash an action for it. Whether that's worth it or not, oh man, we're gonna have a discussion about that. Zombie Mason costs 3. Trash the cop card from your deck. You may gain a card costing up to 1 more than it. Note, you don't have to. You can trash a copper and say, yeah, I'm not gaining a poorhouse, or I'm not gaining a curse, or I'm not gaining a copper, or whatever else is there. You can just leave it in the trash. It's not mandatory. Next, we have Zombie Spy. +1 card, +1 action. Look at the top card of your deck. Discard it or put it back. So Spy is back, everybody. Donald decided to go back on his decision to eliminate Spy, and he brought it back as a zombie. How thematic. So, what do you guys think about Necromancer? Is it any good? Obviously, you can trash some actions, put them in the trash, and then suddenly, wow, Necromancer can use those. It can use the Moneylender that's now useless. You can trash Moneylender with Zombie Apprentice and then use your Necromancer as kind of a weird zombified band of misfits for the rest of the game. It's kind of cool. It's really gimmicky. But is it good? And that's our discussion. Beyond Awesome, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I definitely don't have enough experience with Necromancer. They're definitely going to be crazy boards like you have Procession, and there's going to be crazy things that happen.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, it's more of a prediction than like I have any idea what I'm talking about, because I really don't have any idea what I'm talking about when it comes to Necromancer. I do love the concept, though. Oh, and yeah. I love that Spy's back from the dead, or rather risen from the dead.
Yep. Zombie Apprentice. Does this mean alchemy is going to die? Is this like
no?
There's a probably not. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
As far as Dominion cards go, the concept is probably one of the coolest, if not the coolest, concepts ever.
I think I agree with that.
Well, I like the concept a lot. It's a pretty cool concept.
Oh yeah.
Is it a power card? Is it bad? I don't think it's bad, but I think it's gonna take a lot of getting used to.
Yeah, that
It's
sounds
gonna
about right.
be a very strategic card, but maybe if you just pile out the necromancers and then they become like these super overlords that play everything. I don't know, but so maybe that's a thing where you just try to get as many necromancers as possible, and then trash a bunch of other actions. I really don't know. It's interesting because if you start trashing cards, your opponent can get necromancer,
Yeah.
which is like which can become a super overlord. So
So
it's
it's like
like,
an action forager kind of.
I
It's a
have
bit like an
no.
action forager.
So
Like,
how
oh, the
how
more
good
cards
is
you put
it?
in the trash, the more powerful the forager becomes, but you're putting in all the work and the opponent isn't, and then they can just pick up
Yeah,
the forager and just reap off your benefits.
yeah. So I don't really know. It's going to be a card that I need to play with more.
Oh yeah, for
But
sure.
I think I think it's going to be a high skill card, but I think it's going to be a good high skill card where it ends up being pretty strong, but you have to know what you're doing.
Interesting. Tracer, what do you think about this zombie mess
I
of
don't have
four
a clue.
cards? I don't think anybody has a clue. If they do, they're
The
here. Sit down. You don't have a
I
clue.
played one game with it that had Lurker, and I was trying to build this deck that drew with Zombie Apprentice, and on my second play of Necromancer, I figured out that that didn't work because you turn the cards over. So that's, I guess, something to look out for.
Yeah.
Um,
You can only play it once a turn.
Playing it for Zombie Mason seems pretty strong enough that you would open it quite a bit.
I have actually done that, and I got destroyed. So I don't think it's good.
I mean, it
But
has
it's just one
it
game.
has the problem where it's a terminal trasher. One card happens to be blind, so
Oh yeah,
maybe
it's like
not.
Lookout. So this should have been called Zombie Lookout. Really, that would have been amazing. Calling it Zombie Lookout. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
But I mean, if you need to trash, it trashes, but its trashing isn't going to be that strong because unlike most terminal trashers where you can pick them up late after you have your draw up, this isn't going to work. Yeah, there's going to be some games where it's crazy. I don't know that it's going to be particularly strong ever. But if Zombie Mason's going to work for you, I guess that's the main thing that you would pick it up for, because the other two, otherwise you're just going to be playing it as spy because you don't want to trash any of your action cards. Against ruins, yeah, that'll be pretty nice, but maybe you don't give them ruins.
Yeah, maybe not. And you're only trashing one of them a turn, so it's just a non-terminal smithy for trashing an action. That doesn't excite me that much. I mean, it's probably fine. I really don't know what to think about Necromancer at all. I hesitate to say this, but it feels like it's more in the set because it's thematic than because it's actually good. But I mean, all cards have their place, and I think Necromancer will have its place. We have to figure it out, and to figure it out, you got to play a lot of games. It's like Archive. It's like Crypt. And it literally just came out yesterday. It's 12:30 in the morning
Today.
now, so it came out yesterday. So of course we're not gonna know. It's so bonkers and weird, and I'm gonna go on a limb and say it right now. It's probably one of the weaker 4 cards in the game, but I mean, man, that's what everyone said about Rebuild, and then Rebuild became really good, and now it's really bad again, and it's better than everyone says how bad it is. It's better than that. But like this could be one of those cards. So everyone's a little cautious because they don't want to be that one guy who says it's weak. But I don't care because I'm hosting a podcast today. And I promised to do a bunch of hot takes. I'm gonna say it right now. This is one of the weakest 4 costs in the game. But I mean, I could be wrong. I probably am. It's a puzzle. Like, what do you even say about Necromancer? I guess we could talk about strategies involving trashing action cards and then using Necromancer for that, because you can trash expensive stuff and then you're using a 4 cost to use it. So it could be like a bargain bin action. Maybe.
Yeah, that works.
I
That
don't
works
know.
nice if you're uncontested. Otherwise, you're trashing your king's court for your other person to use it.
Yeah, but then you get to use it too. But they also get to use it.
But you also just
And you have
spent
to trash
7
it.
on something that you can both use.
Yeah. Actually, now that we mention it, this card's probably good in Swindler games. This might be an alright pickup in a Swindler game.
Yeah, they can trash and turn it into a potion.
Yes, but you can also hit it like an action card, like, oh, you hit a Swindler. Well, now you can use Necromancer as another Swindler. Oh, you hit a Laboratory. Well, you can give it Duchy to your opponent, and boom, you also have a Laboratory.
Oh boy,
So,
you loaded
actually, now that I think about it,
you loaded up
this
on a
card
bunch
is-
of necromancers, and that's all that they're hitting, and there's nothing else in the trash. Oops.
well, then you play Necromancer as Necromancer. And then you play it as Necromancer, and then you play that as Necromancer, and you turn them all over, and then you finally get to Zombie Apprentice. Fancy. A whole lot of nothing, but
Yeah, it's not going to be enough to save Swindler games.
it might be. You never know.
Oh, imagine night games.
A night games with Necromancer? Oh, God. Bringing the knights back from the dead? Is Necromancer going to be on my ban list already? Just for that? I don't even want to think about that. That's, oh, God. What other horrible atrocities? Oh, you can trash Possession and then play it with Necromancer every turn. How about that? Open Lurker, open Double Lurker, or even better, open Necromancer Lurker. Trash a Possession.
Play
And then
Possession turn
play-
3.
Yeah, play Possession turn 3, and then take your opponent's Lurker and gain that possession from the trash. It's evil. I mean, that requires a bunch of stars to align. I'd probably just open Double Lurker, but like just the thought of that scares me. Necromancer could be Possession. That's scary. Oh man, what other things can you do? I guess.
Oh, someone mentioned, I think, on Discord that you can like king hireling from the discard, and now your hireling will draw 3 for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and you
Oh.
don't have to keep the necro out. Necromancer.
Interesting.
Shouldn't be saying necro. I went on a reel against that earlier
Yeah.
today.
You have to call it a Necrom. A Necrome. Or you can call it a Mancer.
It's just weird.
Play a man. It's a little weird. Yeah, you gotta play a man every turn. But anyway, this card probably won't be strong enough to where we ever have to worry about that too often. But you never know. And I can't ever imagine a game where it's like, oh, it's the right play to pull the zombies out of the trash with Lurker. But maybe it's the right play on a particular board. Who knows? It's only been a day. And the most mysterious card in Nocturne, I would say, so far, unless there's a more mysterious card that hasn't been released.
Lucky coin.
Lucky Coin? It's not mysterious. It's just like, that's like the ultimate big money card of the set. Last one was Gear for Adventures. What was the money card for Empires? Like, there surely is one. And I have to think about it.
Was there a money card in Empires?
Probably not. Delve. Yeah, that's that's
Delve
kind of
and
a money.
Conquest. Yeah.
Oh, Conquest. Yeah, absolutely. Those are good money cards. Yeah. So this probably wraps up the whole thing. It's gone on for 3 hours and 15 minutes. It's been a long discussion.
No, 2
I think
hours.
hours. Good thing. Another hour and I'd be dead.
All right, this interface is weird.
You-
It must start at 1 hour. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I guess before we go, I'm going to ask all of you, both of you, whether you think Nocturne is a strong set or not. Beyond Awesome, what do you think about Nocturne as a whole based on these previews?
Well, all right. So not every expansion needs to be a strong set. So there is, a lot of people on FDS and Discord. We're all very competitive, so we want every expansion to be Empires and Adventures, and not every expansion is going to be Empires or Adventures, which have the most OP cards pretty much in all of Dominion, because Donald X went mega OP in those 2 expansions. But as a whole, I think Nocturne is more comparable to earlier expansions power level wise. I don't think it's like some people are saying, oh, it's not that strong. I don't think it's like any less stronger than, say, the majority of other expansions out there. I mean, like Prosperity, for crying out loud, has like Venture and Contraband and Royal Seal and Trade Route.
Prosperity has
and Loan.
3 good cards.
So, and
Yeah,
Prosperity
pretty much.
was and still is, for whatever reason, still a very popular expansion. So, as a whole, I think Nocturne is more average power level, but I still like it a lot. I think it's a very good expansion. I think there's a lot of decent cards. And, I mean, there's some cards that are, but, I'm not going to, let that hold me back from my enjoyment of Nocturne or Dominion in general.
Yeah. Me personally, I like this set. I think it's very cool. Despite, I think there are a lot of, I don't want to call them duds, but a lot of weak cards that you're going to ignore more often than not. But, I mean, considering how many strong cards there are in Dominion, we're just thinking of all of those cards. And this may just be a continuing trend with all future sets where they're just not going to match up to the strength of some of these cards. And that's probably ultimately a good thing because it dilutes the really strong cards and it makes you think on more boards. So I think this set is kind of devolving more towards sluggish and more messy engines, and I think that's fine, honestly. The game's been going hyper engine. Like, the games end turn 12, 13 often, all the time. And Nocturne, with all these Nocturne cards, like, they're ending turn 18, turn 19, 17, 16.
Yeah, that's what happens when people buy Ghost Town instead of good stuff.
Are you changing your answer to Ghost Town is bad?
No, I just...
2 hours in? All right.
Nah.
Okay. So, what's your opinion on Nocturne?
I guess I get to end it off.
You do.
The cards, you buy some of them sometimes, you don't buy them other times, and they're new cards, they'll do stuff, you'll have fun playing with them, because otherwise you probably wouldn't be playing with the previous cards, so be fine, and they're cards.
All right, that's the most stock answer ever. Are you running for office? There was no drama in any of the sentences. You gotta have some hot takes. We gotta have one hot take.
He's running for Dominion City Council.
We gotta have one hot take before we leave. What's the craziest opinion you have about Nocturne?
Oh, well, I think I already said that boons are more good than hexes are bad.
Oh yeah, that is a hot take.
That was a crazy one.
That is a crazy one.
I don't know. What else is there to say? Yeah, I don't think
Well.
Nocturne's going to impact games that much. I guess that's something that you can say is a hot take.
All right.
Uh,
Sweet. I'll put that next time you run for office. I'm gonna bring that up.
yeah,
Everyone's
they're
gonna.
cards.
There you go. They're cards. You play them. There you go. That's why we play Dominion, to play cards. Thanks for listening, everybody. Yeah, Nocturne Previews. They're coming out pretty soon, sometime in November. I think it's the 12th, but I'm not sure. Thank you for listening, everyone. Have a nice day.